Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 23rd, 2024 Greytown Council meeting. My name is Dan McGuire. I'm filling in for Krista Chappell, who's online tonight but not feeling well. This meeting will be held in person and online with a link provided in the agenda header. For public hearings, residents can click in to participate or call using the number provided during the public hearings as detailed in the agenda. And we'll do roll call. Matthew?
Here.
Marty?
Present.
Ann?
Present.
Krista?
Present.
And my name's Dan McGuire, and to my right is Mike Foley, our town manager. If you'll all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oops, we've moved it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I had one question about the consent agenda myself. I didn't see the minutes in the packet.
Yeah, so we had been delayed on the minutes, and unfortunately we weren't able to have them done. We had an illness amongst staff who typically prepares them. So we'll have the minutes for the last meeting included in the next.
At our next meeting, great,
Yes.
okay, very good. The next part of our agenda is public comments on non-agenda items with a limit of 3 minutes per person. Comments are intended for information sharing, not discussion. Comments in excess of 3 minutes are welcome at the end of the agenda prior to adjournment. We're happy to stay if anyone else has something else to say. Is there anyone here for comments for non-agenda items? Please come to the podium, state your name and your address.
Yeah, Gary Foster, 181 Weymouth Road. At the last meeting, the town manager read a letter that was signed by Randy Cookson of Solid Waste and Recycling. At first, I want to say I've known Randy for more than 25 years as a citizen, as a counselor for the town of Gray, and as his successor to Regional Waste Systems and now Eco Maine. The letter seemed particularly strange to me because it was not consistent with Randy's behavior as I have known him for 25 years. He's always been very straightforward, very factual, and I think if somebody had given him some information that he repeated, he felt confident that information was accurate. He would not be spreading rumors. That would be just, and anybody that knows him would say the same thing, that would just be totally out of character. So and then I did read the letter afterwards as well, and I don't believe that he wrote the letter. I think he signed it. It looked like it was coerced. I think maybe it was some backpedaling from a bad decision. But I don't think Randy is responsible for spreading rumors. He just repeated what he had been led to believe was the truth. So, and I also believe Randy is the one that is owed an apology, a public apology as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on non-agenda items? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Fran Monroe from Gray, and I'd like to have some comment made about the TIF expenditure that's in the budget. I spoke at it at the last meeting, and I wanted to give you some information. I am one of the original people that worked with that TIF, the Enercon TIF, and I wanted to verify today that $300,000 is coming from the Enercon TIF, and I was told it is.
There will be a public hearing on the budget, so you will have an opportunity to speak.
I'm going to give you some information before the public hearing.
This
that
isn't
you
the
might
appropriate
wanna-
time for that.
Pardon?
This is just for things that aren't on our agenda tonight.
That's correct. This is not on your agenda, what I'm about to say.
All right, sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
giving you some history. okay?
Okay.
I have history.
Well, I understand that. I think you could give it to us at the public hearing, but that's okay. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Fran.
okay, no, I was giving you a setup for what I'm about to say. And that is, I was on the town council when that first TIF was created, the Enacon, was called the Enacon TIF. And, at that time, it was designed, it was actually a contract between Enacon, the state of Maine, and the town of Gray. And in that contract, it specifically stated what the money, as it accumulated over the years, could be used for, and what it couldn't. And I'm very familiar with that, and what it stated was for infrastructure, as the growth occurred in the district itself. So, now I see it's in the budget for staffing. You know, it has nothing to do with infrastructure. Now, there's a chance that current TIFs might have that, inclusion in there, that the money could be used for other things besides infrastructure. But the contract that the town of Gray had, so you would be going against a contract that was done. If that $300,000 remains in that contract, I want you to really think about that before your public hearing, because we really need to look into that. I was told today that the town manager did contact an attorney, because I've been through this many times throughout the years in this town. It's how you ask the question to the attorney, and that's what kind of answer you get. I know for a fact that you cannot be using that money for the $300,000 for the thing. And if you plan on extending any TIF district, keep in mind, the town has been bamboozled with all the TIFs we created. The Gobeal TIF ended up not being used with the intent. The district hasn't grown. The water main district, TIF, using the TIF for the water main down to Enacon. There was supposed to be a hotel and a restaurant created. That never happened. The Enacon Park itself was supposed to be expanded, and the platforms are still there. And so nothing came to fruition for the original intent of the TIF. So keep that in mind. As a little background and history of what's taken place. That money needs to be used, if you plan economic development in this town, that money that's been accumulated needs to be used for those infrastructures. If you don't, the taxpayers will be burdened with that responsibility in the future without being able to use the funds that are even spent for other intentions. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. We can talk about that when we have the public hearing. Are there any other questions on non-agenda items? Seeing none and no one on the line, I'll close this section of the agenda. And moving on to item number 6, public hearings, to review and act upon an amendment to Articles 4 of the proposed updated floodplain management ordinance, Chapter 405, to establish the floodplain development permit fee in the town of Gray fee schedule and strike the fee amount reference in the ordinance language. The motion reads, ordered the Gray Town Council approves to amend Article 4 of the proposed updated floodplain management ordinance, Chapter 405, to establish the floodplain hazard development permit fee in the town of Gray fee schedule and strike the fee amount referenced in the ordinance language. Can I get a motion, please? Oh, so- that's right, and.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So, Ann and Marty. Is there, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here tonight to talk about the flood?
Well, I think procedurally, if I may,
Yeah, please.
Mr. Chair, so this is an amendment, and then the second item is to hold a public hearing on the amended proposal.
I got it backwards.
Yes. No,
Okay.
that's all right.
That's all right.
And if I may, just to explain this amendment, proposed amendment?
Sure.
Sure. So the proposed amendment, we talked a little bit about the fees at the last meeting. There was some ambiguous language, so working with staff, we wanted to ensure that the language was crystal clear for us to be able to amend the fee schedule associated with this. And so we were able to come up with this amendment that allows us to have a more concrete fee schedule associated with this plan.
Okay, very good. Yes, otherwise, we would have to actually treat it as an ordinance and, rather than as a change to the fee schedule. So I guess at this point in time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak?
We have to vote
You
on
have to vote on
the
this first, I think, yeah.
amendment.
This is good practice for me. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Amendment
No,
exercise,
it's
yeah.
All right, so we'll vote. Matthew,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Krista. And I'm a yes also. All right, third time's the charm. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on the ordinance for the chapter 405 floodplain management plan? Seeing none, there's no one online. I'll close the public hearing. Is there any discussion for the council? I think it was pretty clear. This was really pretty much the only thing in the ordinance that we're allowed to change. This was given to us by the state and via the state from the federal government. Making changes to this would cause a whole lot of other issues for people in town that may be in the floodplain. It makes some changes to language as well as to expanding the floodplain in some parts of town. All right, if there's no other comments or discussion, I'll close discussion, we'll have a vote. Matthew?
Oh,
Yeah.
Dan?
I think we
Yep.
just need to take a motion on the approval.
Okay.
I just had one comment.
Oh, sorry, Krista. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to elaborate that not only were these necessary because the state has mandated them, but they're also allowing those that require flood insurance, federal flood insurance, to allow them to keep those that insurance coverage, because without these changes, they would be out of the they wouldn't be allowed to retain their insurance. So I just wanted to make that clear. That was part of why we're making these changes.
Yeah, that's an important point. The compliance piece is important.
And so we just need that motion.
Yep. So the motion is ordered the Greytown, wrong one, be it ordained, the Greytown Council approves the repeal of the floodplain management ordinance, chapter 405, as adopted on April 20th, 1993, and the adoption of the updated floodplain management ordinance as amended, the flood insurance rate map to become the Town of Gray ordinance, chapter 405, effective June 20th, 2024.
So moved.
Matthew and Marty, thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Matthew?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
I'm also a yes, so that passes unanimously. Oh, yes,
No, I was just
Oh.
waving to Doug.
oh. That's all right. Action items, to review and act upon removing from the table approving the warrant articles for the annual town meeting to be held on June 11th, 2024. The motion is ordered the Greytown Council removes from the table approving the warrant articles for the annual town meeting to be held on June 11th, 2024.
So moved.
Yeah, sorry, second.
Thank you.
Everybody's asleep.
Krista? It's because I'm out of the mix. And,
Discombobulated.
yeah.
So this you take a vote.
Yep. Matthew?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Okay.
So now the item is before you, and we'll have to take a motion for the budget as a whole.
Yep, which is the next.
The next one, yeah.
Ordered, the proposed motion is ordered the Greytown Council approves the warrant articles for the annual town meeting to be held on June 11th, 2024, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And Matthew? And we'll, so we can, there's just time for discussion. I made an error earlier tonight that I need to correct, because we don't have a public hearing on this. And
No, we had the public hearing
We
at
had
the
the
last
public
meeting.
hearing at the last meeting, so I made a mistake on that.
But we can still take public comment on the budget before the council votes.
And that's what I was just gonna do.
Perfect.
Thank you, yeah. But in light of my mistake, if there are comments on the budget before we take the vote, we're willing to hear them. So is there anyone that would like to speak to the budget before we take a vote on the warrant articles? Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. You know, last meeting, you were discussing the town engineer. And at this point, after hearing all the comments, I think that should be removed from the budget, because it appears that there isn't a specific role that the council or the administration wants to wait and see what the qualifications of an individual are before they decide what the role would be, which suggests that it's not needed. You're hiring a position and then trying to figure out what they're gonna do afterwards based on their qualifications. Also, the Economic Development Department, economic development is spontaneous unless there's something prohibiting that. And the town of Gray, I know the planning board has long been a deterrent to economic development. So to have one department competing with one of our boards doesn't make sense either. So, thank you.
Thanks very much. Are there any other comments that people would like to make?
So, I had asked some questions at the last council meeting, at the public hearing, and I also, made inquiries through email, which seemed to get lost, but then I also did a hand-carried copy of my questions to the town office over a week ago, and I still don't have a response. And it has to do with specific items, like these brand-new positions that are being created. We have not had a full audit in quite a while. We don't know where our standing is. I'm not sure we've reconciled all our records yet, and we're making a lot of expenditures that'll be a burden on the taxpayers in the near future. It's easy to hide them right now with the excess funding that we have stored in, reserve accounts and that type of thing. But you're gonna have to pay the piper eventually. That money isn't gonna be there forever. And especially with now this new program that's supposed to give us finite details about the budget and what's being proposed and that type of thing. So, in light of all of that, I'm not sure you guys are ready to prepare with any finality, the projects that you're creating and expect the citizens to vote on. And I encourage the taxpayers to watch the tapes of what's been said and about the expenditures that are being created that are brand new, and without any accounting or accountability at this point. I think it's unfair to taxpayers, and I urge the citizens to vote down the budget to send a clear message that the town council isn't paying attention to the public's needs, but to their own individual or lack of attention to what's going on. I think we've all made ourselves very clear at the public hearing, especially the contractors that have been in business for so long in this town, and to make it so difficult for them to continue their businesses. I think that's just outrageous, that kind of lack of attention to tax-paying citizens for many, many years would be, treated that way. And so that's my encouragement, and hopefully you'll change the warrant and maybe take a look at something different. I don't know what you can do at this point, but I want to make sure the public hears and knows what they're up against, because it's not so much the number at the bottom line this time. This has to do with the plans and expansions without any accountability or knowing where you are as a town. And thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Are there any members of the council,
I'll wait.
council that would like to speak?
I just wanted to point out in the warrant article that the first article is always electing a moderator, but since we do that at referendum, we don't need it, we don't have a, that's not something that would be on the, that they would vote on, right?
Yeah, I've learned that where we're voting on the warrant articles, not the ballot
Right.
itself, yeah.
Yeah, yes, but I just, if people were looking at it and sort of curious
Yeah.
about that, yeah.
I had a similar question.
Yeah, I also wanted to note that in the 10,500 for the council, the additional 500 is for the council chair, who in that role does a lot of extra work, preparing the budget and, doing, supervising the town manager a little more directly and that kind of thing. So we had added in previous years that additional money. I love the additional language in the absentee ballot processing. I think that was new this year. Maybe I just don't remember from previous years, but in the warrant, or in the packet anyway, that was really helpful. And I had a quick question on page 85 of the packet. That list of election workers, are all of those folks needed? Will all those folks be working at the June 11th election, or are they just kind of a pool that's called on as needed?
I think we'll,
Yeah, that is a later item on the agenda.
Right.
The
Oh, okay.
appointment of the election.
All right,
workers.
yeah, you're right. Sorry, yep. I can wait till then.
Okay.
But yeah, that was it for my remarks.
anyone else? Matthew, Martina? I have some. I think to speak to Fran's questions earlier tonight about the TIF, I don't remember exactly how many TIFs we have now, but they all each have very specific rules around them. You mentioned the South Gray TIF, where we ran the water main out to the old Gobeals because they were gonna build a water park and what was gonna happen out there. And none of that came to fruition. I don't remember the exact dates, but when we put forth the village TIF, we also at the same time asked voters to make changes to that South Gray TIF and to roll that up into this TIF, into the village TIF, because we would never see the economic development that had been hoped, the council hoped it would see when it created that TIF. You're absolutely right that when a TIF expires, the economic development hasn't happened, then there is a potential for a big jump in the local tax burden, which is something the council is aware of. And the goal of rewriting the South Gray TIF was actually to extend it and prevent that from happening while giving the town more time to work with the TIF. So that kind of explains that piece. The Enercon TIF is very exact and very specific. That's not the only place, though, that we have the ability to take money to use for the projects in the town. We're not proposing to use any of the TIFs inappropriately at all, though this is the first time we've ever had a budget where it's been proposed to use TIF money for personnel. There are other things about this budget that personally I don't particularly care for. I'm not a fan of the purchase of more electric vehicles. I think we gave employees increases in pay for the last 2 years. I personally would have liked to have seen us hold off this year just because of everything else that's going on. I think the concern about the lack of audit is one that we all share. the lack of audit has nothing to do with our unwillingness to have an audit, and everything to do with us not being able to find a firm who will audit us. We are working to prepare for the next audit. And we do, I know the town manager has had some conversations with the finance director, with various people to help us prepare and do that. That said, with our new finance director, while we don't have the audit trail that we have, we do have and are gaining, I think, better control over our finances than we've had in a while. And I think that should be seen as good news for everybody. There are other expenses in this budget that I wouldn't put in it if it was up to me to do on my own. But as a whole, I think the budget does move us in the direction that we want to go. I think there are some risks with the budget, but I don't believe that the voters are ever going to let us pass a budget that causes taxes to skyrocket. They've not been shy about voting down the budgets in the past when they've been unhappy with it. I have spoken to people who have some concerns about the budget. They're uncertain with it, but they are supportive of it, as I am. So I think we're gonna have to wait and see where things fall at the polls in June. But I would encourage people to support this budget, because I think overall, though there are some risks in it, there's nothing in here that can't be changed in the future. If we've created positions we can't afford in the future, then we may have to look to cut them. And I'm okay with doing that if it proves that these don't pan out the way we all hope that they will. So those are my thoughts about the budget and my encouragement. Krista, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, thanks, Dan. You covered a couple of them, particularly regarding the audit. But I did want to address the comment about the engineer. I think I recall the conversation from the public hearing, and Mike did refer to qualifications as a necessary barometer for how we might define certain aspects of that role. But there are definitely projects in town where we will need the support of an engineer and also a project manager type role, which this role would combine into one going forward. That regardless of the skill sets that we hire for, this person would indeed manage that, particularly infrastructure projects in the village, explorations about sewer and stormwater capacity, potentially investigating underground utility needs, and also just other infrastructure needs that we have received funding for outside of the village, including improvements on Libby Hill near the school, which we've received a federal, formerly called an earmark for monies to support those projects. And those are just two very large areas in town that will be seeing projects forthcoming within the next 5 to 10 years. So there's definitely going to be a need for that person to support those projects going forward. And then the finer details that Michael was speaking to regarding qualifications, I think we're speaking more specifically to any forthcoming development projects that might come from local developers in town, and what those needs might be for projects that are unknown at this point. So I just wanted to provide some clarity around that. Also, I had a couple comments just on warrant language, but I didn't know if I should save that till we vote to approve, or vote to consider the warrants.
That motion's before you.
Yeah, I think that is before us now, Krista, so.
Oh, I thought we were still on the public hearing.
No.
Sorry. My apologies. Okay, so let me just cover those. On Article 6 on page 80, packet page 81, where we talk about the TIF allocations, we don't get into specifics on uses, which I know we've done in the past. So I'm just wondering if we need to further expand on uses for those TIF allocations under Article 6. I don't know if you've had feedback from Alyssa, Michael.
Sure, yeah, legal did review it, and essentially, the TIF is a revenue associated with the budget, and that number equals the Economic Development Department budget. And
Right.
so it's been clear in the discussions that that's been to support economic development. It's not, it's not necessarily we're not spending it directly on those expenses because those are in the annual budget. And so that's why we're using them as a revenue to offset, and so that's why they're explained in that direction.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. I just didn't know if we needed to expand on their use as economic development for supporting those personnel.
It's their activities and projects that are authorized by the TIF district,
Okay,
and that's what's in the language.
okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that. And then Article 7, I think in the past, this is about disposing of town-owned property and then transferring those funds into the capital reserve fund. At the end of the warrant, it talks about holding a public hearing prior to any expenditures of those funds that we receive from disposing of town-owned property. And I'm just wondering if we need to include that since we're already allocating funds in the capital reserve through Article 5.
No, so this is basically saying if throughout the fiscal year, we sell property and essentially receive money, the town is authorized, the warrant is authorizing the council to spend it for capital reserve funds, but not without a public hearing because they weren't appropriated as part of the original budget appropriation.
Okay. Right. Okay. So that was my understanding of how I was reading it. It's just, I guess in the past we have voted in the warrants to allow the disposition of that property and put the funds into capital reserve, but we haven't allocated a public hearing in the language before. So I was just wondering.
Yeah, that was
new.
That was in some old language, but this is only if there's property that's sold. Like we don't have any pending properties to be sold at the moment.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. I found some differences in prior warrant language. I just wanted to make sure that we were being consistent. That was all I had. Thank you.
The only other thought that I'd like to add is, Krista mentioned the $800,000+ in federal money that the district and the town have got to do sidewalks and a second entrance to the school district, to the high school off of Route 26 in federal money. But the town has also had the promise of $3 million from MDOT for the village design project and the engineering that will be required. Some of the having an engineer representing the town in those discussions and in that planning, as well as helping to oversee the implementation of the plan, I think is extremely valuable for the town. If you look at the North Raymond Road Route 26 intersection, it looks like an entrance onto the turnpike. I mean, there's a huge sweep of pavement when you're coming southbound to turn north onto North Raymond Road, which would be true which you might need if you had a 53-foot trucks going up there all the time. But the fact of the matter is that having an engineer, I think, that has that experience can help us with these design questions and help us implement things that will support what the town really wants to see happen and not just what other organizations like MDOT or MTA would like to see happen. So I think there's some value in that too. Anything else before we take a vote?
Mike?
Yeah,
I have a few things that I wanted to talk about.
Go ahead.
So if I may, I'll just address the concern from Mr. Monroe about the TIF district. So this TIF was established, it's the Northbrook Business and Industrial Campus Tax Increment Financing District program, and it was established in 1997. I think it may have had an old name, but it was amended in 2012. And in that amendment, the authorized costs that can be used for the TIF district are there's 3 items there, but 2 which actually all 3 that fit to what we're doing with the funds, and I'll read those. So in section H of the TIF district approval from the Maine Department of Economic Community Development, which I can get you a copy of, has section H where it says in the district and outside the district, infrastructure including water pipes, septic sewer systems, paved roadways, electrical power, street lighting, acquisition of land, and construction of pedestrian vehicular public safety, roadway improvements, sidewalks, street improvements, land, other property acquisition, construction of traffic flow, and pedestrian public safety improvements. And they have a projected value of $682,000, and those are just estimates. So the TIF district revenue actually grows as the tax rate grows, and whatever happens for growth in the district, sometimes it can exceed the estimates. So the numbers are just estimates, they're not requirements of the most that you can spend. And so in this case, the Economic Development Department that we're funding has we're proposing a town engineer and project manager, and so they'll manage all these projects that I've outlined. They'll help manage all these projects that I've outlined here, and that's an eligible expense. This next section, if I may finish before being interrupted. Section I is planning limited to in-district per Title 30A. The town does not have permission to pursue any other allowable project activity under the section without future formal amendment. So planning costs are part of the preceding paragraph estimate. And that talks about planning and management of those projects that are outlined there. And then section J, which says outside the district, projects, activities specifically rated to Gray Village are limited to those enumerated in the paragraph H. So all the same things that we're doing in paragraph H, which Economic Development Department will help oversee and ensure that all those things happen. And so I've checked with legal counsel, and these are all eligible economic development activities associated with this TIF district, and this was the amendment from January 5th of 2012 that was approved by the DECD, and so I have that, and like I said, I can get you a copy of that. And so as far as the question about the desire from folks that we don't need the engineer position or economic development position, that's fine if the town doesn't want those positions, but there's a lot of things that before I came here, the council and the townspeople through the comprehensive plan and the village transformation project plan have asked the town to do. And those things, as the town manager, I'm not able to do all those activities and manage the town. Right now, as I've stated publicly a number of times, the village transformation project is currently managed by Councilor Gass, which it's really outside of her role and responsibility to be managing that project. And it's not fair to her, and it's not fair to the public that she be one managing that. But she's volunteered her time to help keep that project moving until we have a project manager and economic development director to help us with those positions. I've also heard from a number of residents here in Gray since I've been here that we need more business, we need new businesses, and that's really the only way the town can raise revenue to help offset the residential property tax base. Gray has an extremely high residential property tax base, and in order for us to be able to grow businesses and support the businesses that are here and help them grow and expand, we need those people and those resources to be able to do that. So if the town doesn't want to do any of those things, that's fine. We cannot have those positions. But I think the reason the council has supported those positions in the budget process is that we need them, and if we don't have them, we're not going to be able to do a lot of the things through the comp plan and village transformation project that the town has asked for. And so I think that those positions are needed, but again, if people don't want to, we can do that. I did receive Ms. Monroe's letter. I never received an email from you, and I never had there was no contact information left on the letter, so I wasn't able to report back to you. I understand you came into town hall today, and I was at a training with the Maine Department of Transportation and staff from Public Works, and so I'm happy to schedule a meeting with you anytime to better explain these items associated with the budget. But the budget as a whole is reflecting a tax decrease of 4.2% for the municipal side, which is 20 cents less than last year. So last year, the town, as I've outlined during many of the budget presentations, the town had a substantial tax increase that I think may or may not have been necessary, and so we're able to recognize the overcollection of revenues that we're experiencing this year and be able to reflect those in next year's budget. And so I built this budget in a way that if there's revenues are stagnant and don't go in a way that we'd like them to, we can make some tweaks to the budget in future years that won't have detrimental impact on town operations. The other new positions that we have in the budget, mostly a focus on finance. As we've reported many a times, the finances here are extremely disorganized, and we've been expecting one person in a finance position to manage the collection of nearly $23 million in taxes and a $13 million operating budget. And so that's too big of a job for just one person. And it also doesn't have the appropriate checks and balances. And with the new positions that we've structured, we'll have checks and balances that will ensure everything is above board and people are doing what they appropriately done. I'm concerned about the disorganization of the finances and the auditing as well, and that's why I'm tackling this to be able to do those items. But it doesn't mean that we don't build a budget for the future. We have to build a budget for the future. We have to move on from the concerns, and in the meantime, we're working on addressing the concerns of the past, and we're having finance support and auditing support to help us prepare the past, to help fix the past issues that myself and the finance director, who are both new within the last year, to not be held responsible for those previous mistakes. And so I'm looking forward to hopefully the town supporting this budget in the months ahead. I appreciate the council's support on the budget as a whole. I worked really hard to do this in kind of short order, given that I just started at the end of January. And I hope that in the future we'll have much more time to be able to be a little bit more thorough and be even more transparent than we have been. I did include in the packet the 3 previous fiscal years, which was a concern was raised at the last meeting that those hadn't been shown, so that those items are reflected in the packet as well. That's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, no one is ever gonna agree on everything, especially with something that has as many moving parts to it as our budget. And I think the work does show, this budget process has been open to the public since the very beginning. We've encouraged people to come and comment to the extent that we sent everyone in town a postcard asking them back in January. I can, well, if you didn't get one, that's news to me, but that's, well, we can't have a conversation, so. We did invite people. It is open. It's always been open. And I think that's an important thing to remember too. All right. Anyone else have any comments? All right, so that I'm clear, we are voting on the warrant now.
Yes, you are.
All right. Matthew,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Very good. We'll see what happens at the polls. The next item of business is to review and act upon the appointment of the warden for the June 11th, 2024 election. The motion is ordered the Greytown Council appoint Susan Tuscroft as the warden for the town meeting to be held on June 11th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Moved Marty, seconded Matthew. Is there any discussion? I believe Susan has done this for us in the past. I certainly appreciate that, her willingness to volunteer again to do this for us this June.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll just go to roll call. Ann,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
The next item of business is to review and act upon the appointment of election officials for a period of 2 years ending April 30th, 2026. The proposed motion is ordered the Greytown Council approves the proposed election officials for a period of 2 years ending April 30th, 2026, and the names are attached and appear on packet page 85, 6. Is there, I think I read the motion.
Yeah.
Yes.
So moved?
And
Second.
Marty, thank you. Any discussion? Yes.
If I may just prematurely respond to Ann's question
Yeah.
about the election workers. So those are the election workers for a 2-year period,
Right,
so we
yeah.
don't necessarily use them all for every election.
Yeah.
Given that the clerk will determine based on the volume of the election, who works when and
And
at
their
what time.
availability.
And their availability as well. Some folks might not be available in June, but they're available in November. A lot of folks volunteer, well, they take time off from work, and so a lot of times, folks may or may not be able to get the June election off, but they can get the November election off, and so
Right.
that's the election workers that we'll have to support the next 2 years worth of elections.
Yeah, sorry about jumping the gun
No, that's
earlier.
okay.
I just had run my comments all together and I'd written down.
For those that might not have the packet in front of them, there's roughly 18 volunteers from both parties, so it's a pool of roughly 36 or 40 people. So.
Yeah, it's really exciting, actually, to see that number. I got so lost in the names, I
Yeah.
was really excited.
They volunteer, but they are paid. There is a payment for
Yes.
a salary for election workers.
Any other comments? All right, we'll go to roll. Matthew,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. All right. The next action item is to review and act upon the mobile vendor license for Lonnie Humphreys, DBA Lonnie Dogs. The motion is ordered the Gray Town Council approves the mobile vendor license renewal for Lonnie Humphrey, DBA Lonnie Dogs.
So
Second.
Matthew and Marty. Is there any discussion? I don't know what year this is for Lonnie.
47.
47?
I've spent some time down there to get to know them.
But this is something, this is a familiar process that we go through every year. He's certainly an icon, and I think everybody's, I don't know if you tell the seasons based on when Lonnie opens up, but it's definitely a sign that things are, that the weather is improving. Any comments or questions? No? Glad that he's coming back for yet another year.
Go Lonnie.
All right, we'll go to roll. Ann,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
just mixing things up there. Marty,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. All right. The next item of business is a report from the council chair. Krista, do you want to report out tonight, or do you want to wait till,
Yep. No, I can report out. I might just sound a little congested, so.
it's all right.
I just want to remind everybody that we had agreed to schedule a workshop to discuss, to revisit our priorities that we had identified in the fall. Mike and I had talked about that, and Mike, should we go ahead and do that now, or do you want me to send out a poll? What do you think would be best for staff?
I think we can put out a poll,
Okay,
so that way we make sure we have all the staff associated with the various priorities available.
okay,
We'll work to do it on a Tuesday, so that way it's consistent, and then we can ensure that most people are here. And starting,
Okay.
Next month, staff will be here later on Tuesdays.
okay, great. Yeah, that sounds good. And then I just want to acknowledge, Dan, that I did receive, you had couple different emails with workshop topics proposed. One about underground utilities, and also the village transformation project related to roads, creating ring roads and such. And so I think Ian acknowledged that we should definitely touch base on that soon, but we might need to wait until we have more information from MDOT. Also, I want to acknowledge that Mike had started with us in late January, practically February, and his contract calls for a 3-month evaluation in May. So I'll be sending out some documents related to that, and we'll follow up with an executive session for that. And then we also received news from our state legislators that the repeal of the what's known as LD1 has been signed by the governor. So that was good news from some of our perspectives. And then I want to also let the public know that we will be compiling a budget flyer and are hoping to mail that out to households in advance of the budget. And then for counselors, I'd like to remind you that the GPCOG annual summit is on May 30th at 2:30 at St. Joseph's College. I believe Mike was planning to attend, and then I, Dan, and Matthew are representatives from the council. So you'll just need to reply to that if you're planning to attend. I believe Matthew and I are voting members, and then Dan, you were the alternate.
Correct.
And then also want to remind folks that we have scheduled a workshop on May 14th at 6 to discuss the new GIS mapping that's related to zoning changes to align with the comprehensive plan and the LD 2003 law. And then also Community Day is coming up on May 19th. Hope people could attend that. And Mike, I think this was before you started. The council had decided to host our volunteer, or really reinstitute our volunteer appreciation event the evening of June 6th. But we didn't really have any firm plans about where that would be. I think in the past it was hosted at Spring Meadows Country Club, but we should touch base on that soon to see what we might plan for that event.
So you want that on June 6th, you said?
We had said the evening of June 6th, but that was, a tentative date the council had agreed on, but we could certainly revisit the date if necessary. It's where we get, oh, that's another thing. We should also be promoting nominations for our annual volunteer awards. We should be doing that also soon. But that's where we recognize those individuals who are being awarded.
We'll need an executive session for the volunteer awards.
Yes, we would need that eventually once we have nominations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we should-
So those are just some things on the horizon I wanted to call people's attention to. But that's all I had.
Great, thank you, Krista.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda is the report from the town manager.
Sure, let me just share my screen here if it works. I'm not sure if it'll show up on the TVs in here. But it's showing up to the public and the council here. So real quickly, just wanted to talk about, keep this item on for personnel changes. We continue to have a number of open positions in the town that we're working on filling, light equipment operator and transfer station positions, as well as assistant clerk position, firefighters, recreation positions, the town engineer and project manager, and some library positions that we're working on filling all those. So if anyone's interested, some of those are still open, are still posted, and we're accepting applications to those. And then I just wanted to remind everyone about the code enforcement help. We're crafting a memorandum of understanding with North Yarmouth that we'll have for approval at the council meeting in May. But we're expected to support North Yarmouth with code enforcement about average of 5 to 10 hours a week. And North Yarmouth will be compensating us approximately $40,000 per year for that service. And those numbers were reflected in the updated revenues for the budget. And the town manager in North Yarmouth is hoping to evaluate this during the fiscal year 25. And so we'll have, as we get into budget season next year, we'll have an idea of if they plan to fill that position permanently or try to work with us on a more long-term partnership. And so pleased to be able to help our friends in North Yarmouth as they have that vacancy in a fairly critical position. And we know they would do the same for us if we were in the opposite. And then I just want to remind everyone about the extended hours starting May 6th here at Town Hall. will be open earlier and later every evening, Monday through Thursday. It'll be 8 to 5 on Monday, 8 to 6 on Tuesday, 8 to 5 on Wednesday, and we're opening extra early on Thursday to help those who can't get to the later hours at 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this works into the hours that town hall employees are already working. I know there's been some concerns about them not working 40 hours, but they've only been budgeted to work 36 hours. If we budgeted more, it would cost us more money to be for 40 hours. So these are the hours working based on the existing hours that employees are working. And these extended hours will help make town office more accessible as well as support staffing. We've also already recognized some improved recruitment efforts in some of our newer positions with those different hours similar to all the municipalities around us. And then I also just had a quick update on the joint meeting that the chair mentioned about comp plan zoning discussion on May 14th. And then I'll just quickly speak to the comments at the beginning of the meeting about the letter from Randy. Randy and I worked on that letter together. Randy sat with me in my office and we talked through an understanding. And if you look on all the reports that were included in the council packet today, he reported on there that he met with me and reported on the misunderstanding of misinformation. And so he misunderstood something that I said, and he clarified that in the letter with my help. We worked together on that letter, and he signed that letter willingly. I didn't make him sign that letter. He wanted to sign that to ensure. And following him and I working on that letter, we went and met with all the employees down at the transfer station and explained to them the circumstances, and everyone has a better understanding of the situation. So there wasn't any decision that I made or that anyone made. It was simply a misunderstanding, and we worked that out amongst ourselves. So if you want to discuss that with me and Randy, we'll be happy to meet with any concerned citizen who would like to talk about that further. Otherwise, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mike. Moving on to committee reports. Ann, can we start with you?
Sure. Open Space met and briefly discussed two subdivisions on Ramsdale and Mayo Roads, neither of which is planned as an open space subdivision. The same developer is doing both. And it sort of came up because the Ramsdale Road subdivision will wipe out an existing ATV and snowmobile trail where it meets Ramsdale Road. So we discussed asking the developer to consider allowing that trail to be rerouted to the edge of his property so that we wouldn't lose that access. Something that's really been on my mind a lot lately, and I brought it up with the committee, is the need for open space to become more active in trail corridor planning and preservation, negotiating for corridor easements and for land preservation efforts generally. I think there was some thought that the land trust would take over some of that work for us, but they're busy, they have a big footprint, they're working in a number of different places, and I just don't think we can rely on them to do that. And so we're going to be, Kristen, we talked about, and I think Kristen is looking into this, bringing someone actively engaged in this work from nearby towns, somebody who doesn't work for a land trust, at our next meeting. And the Open Space will participate in Great Community Day, as will Resiliency. Resiliency did not meet this month because they worked so hard since November, meeting at least twice a month. We'll resume in May. I shared the new floodplain ordinance language with them, including where to access the maps, and so they have that, and they were grateful to receive that. We're waiting to hear on the community action grant. It should be mid-May. And lastly, the cooperative agreement has not been signed yet. It's still parked in MDOT legal, where it appears it's in the long-term parking lot. Principal Group had done more work on potential designs for potential for partial closure of Brown Street. Came up with some really interesting suggestions. We discussed at length in our last meeting. So this is a work in progress. We're going to meet again on May 8th. That's it for me.
Thank you, Ann. Marty.
Okay, the Zoning Board of Appeals met on March 27th for training. They will meet again tomorrow night, the 24th at 7 p.m. The Wild Blueberry Festival met April 17th and discussed their management issues. The next meeting is May 8th at 6:30 p.m. The subcommittee for Community Day met last on April 16th and will meet again on May 1st, and Community Day is May 19th, which is a Sunday. The Planning Board had a site walk on Mayall Road on April 10th. The next one is scheduled for April 30th at 123 Ramsdale Road at 5 p.m. Their next meeting is May 9th, and the Finance Committee will meet next May 14th at 3 p.m., and that's all I've got.
Thank you, Marty. Matthew?
None of my committees met since we met last. I've got the Gray Community TV Committee meets tomorrow at 4. That's April 24th at 4. The library trustees are meeting on April 30th at 6:30. The rec committee is May 6th at 6 o'clock, and that brings us up to our next council meeting, so.
Great, thank you. Krista?
Yep, thank you. We actually had our quarterly joint leaders meeting on April 11th, where we met at Pineland at the Unity Environmental University campus, and with representatives from the foundation that owns the Pineland Trust, and also MSAD 15 and New Gloucester representatives. It was really interesting. The facilities are high-end and really nice. I hadn't been in there before, and I was really impressed with their operations, and also the model they use for students. Apparently, they're mostly online currently, but are hoping to expand their footprint at Pineland. They were interested in working with the towns and the school district on developing some internships, and also working with regionally with addressing housing concerns and also transit issues, which I was going to raise with GPCOG, which I forgot to do today. I'll have to reach out to them separately. But nothing firm was decided. It was really just kind of an introductory meeting, but I think a fruitful one. And I'm hoping, particularly the internships here in Gray, I think we might have some opportunities for some of our departments to utilize that relationship going forward. And Mike was there with me, so he might have some thoughts on that too. The Ordinance Advisory Committee is scheduled to meet this Thursday, where we'll be discussing solar standards for both on-site and non-commercial uses, input on proposed amendments for chapters 401 and 402, and also some amendments for accessory dwelling units on one parcel of land. So I can report back on that later. Greater Portland Council of Governments Executive Committee met this afternoon. We conducted and completed the review of Christina Egan, the Executive Director. We also had a presentation about some input that GPCOG was going to make on the Gorham Connector that's been in the news. The Maine Turnpike is looking to create a ring road that connects Portland to the Gorham area. Some of the communities surrounding that connector have reached out to GPCOG to get input on some ideas they might submit to the state agencies for how to make that not just car accessible, but also accessible to mass transit, and what that might mean for the communities surrounding it. So we're going to revisit that issue in May in the letter that they're drafting. We also had a review and presentation of the GPCOG budget for FY25. Their dues are remaining the same this year at $2.10 per capita, so that shouldn't affect our budget at all this year beyond what it did last year. But the budget overall was very well presented and remains steady. They are adding a few positions, which is mostly increasing costs. but it's not a large increase. And then the committee recommended that budget to the General Assembly for the May meeting this afternoon. And then I just want to call your attention, I guess GPCOG is piloting something called Money Mondays for municipalities to join, where they can have a discussion with GPCOG about potential grant funds that are available. The first one of that is May 13th, but folks have to register. So Mike, you just might want to call staff's attention to that. That's all I had for committees.
Thank you, Krista. Just a couple of points on the planning board. Marty mentioned already. The planning board does not have a meeting actually in May, and nothing was submitted. Planning board's next meeting will be June 13th.
Normally, it would have been the 9th.
Normally, it would have
Okay.
been the 9th, but no one had submitted any plans, so there's no meeting in
Okay,
May.
I'll cross that off.
And I can answer to Ann's comments earlier with open space and Ramsdale Road and the ATV. At the last planning board meeting, the developer has committed to keeping that trail. They may want to discuss moving it, but they plan to keep that trail. So there's connecting the dots there for all our various efforts. Other than that, Finance Committee did meet. And I don't think, we do have a date for the next meeting, but I'm afraid off the top of my head, I don't know what that is.
I mentioned it last week.
But it will be posted on the website when it comes about. So I think that,
May 14th, 3 o'clock.
thank you. May 14th at 3 o'clock is the next finance meeting.
I think I forgot one of my committees. The Dry Mill Schoolhouse is actually meeting this Saturday. The Dry Mill Schoolhouse Committee is meeting at the Dry Mill Schoolhouse at 9 a.m. on Saturday.
Do they have a schedule for opening yet, or is that one of the things they're working on?
Yeah, I think they're still working on that. I don't know the schedule off the top of my head.
Okay.
I missed the last meeting.
Any other last calls for committee? No? All right, we'll move on to the council correspondence, activities and priorities, and we'll start with you, Marty.
I have no correspondence or activities.
Thank you, Matthew.
Same.
Same. Ann?
Yep, I just wanted to piggyback on what Krista said about the LD 2102, that the governor signed that. So that was the state law that imposed a confusing and burdensome cap on municipal property tax increases. It will take effect in 6 months, but since the town's FY25 budget is below the cap, it won't affect us this year or ever again. So really, a particular shout out to Senator Teresa Peirce for getting this done. I had an invitation for the Gray Lions Club to attend a presentation on the Trex program, which is a plastics recycling program that can earn the town a new bench. I wasn't able to attend due to a conflict with this meeting tonight, but it sounds interesting, and I really thank them for their interest in that program. The Lions Club led off the first of our benches with on the Hancock link back in the day, and so that was just a very timely donation at a time when we needed that community involvement and participation, and it was unasked for and very much appreciated. Lastly, I had a call from someone who was concerned about something I'd said at the last meeting about farmland protection. He was worried that it had some implications for property he owns in Gray and his plans for it. So we talked through the issue, and I was able to clarify for him what I had in my mind, and he helped me see the issue from his point of view. It was a cordial, useful discussion on both sides, and I was so happy that he reached out to me for clarification rather than spreading rumors or just, assuming that he understood what I was trying to say. So, lesson learned. If you hear something that confuses or alarms you, call me, call any of us. We also accept calls thanking us for what you think we do right, but the point is to call, and so please do so going forward.
Great. Krista?
Yeah, thank you. I've also had several conversations with neighbors and residents about the budget, particularly questions regarding the Economic Development Department and also how some funds have been moved around and accounted for as we redo the way we account for things in our books, particularly regarding HR and recreation. I'm not in regards to HR and recreation. I just was explaining, as we've done in the past, that a lot of those numbers are existing figures. They're just being accounted for in different ways to make our books a little clearer. I also had several residents reach out to me about the letter that Michael read last meeting regarding Randy Cookson's misunderstanding about the transfer station. And I also had a written letter submitted to me just questioning, just having some concerns about my leadership role and whether or not I was running again. I am running for the 1-year seat if folks are interested in that. I also had some contact with Sandy Carter to check up on a couple things she had been volunteering on in the past, particularly the relocation of Douglas Field and also some properties along Libby Hill and the easements associated with those. And I should check in with Mike on the status of that so that we can move those forward if necessary. That's all I had.
Great, thank you, Krista. I also spoke to someone about Ann's comments and the farm piece, and it was a positive conversation. I had a couple of comments from people about Mike's role, and they're pleased with his start, and it feels like he presents himself well to the public, I think. You bring some expertise that I think people recognize, so that was good to hear. I did also speak to some people about the new 4-day schedule. The people seem to be very concerned about the coverage and that being closed that extra day. We'll just have to get into it and see what happens. I had several comments about the budget, both for and against certain aspects of it. I also had a couple of conversations regarding Randy's letter. And I think that the biggest concern actually with as I say that, with the 4-day schedule, the concerns were specifically around the planning department and code enforcement. Those were the issues that people brought up. I have to reset all the dates in our tasks, which seems kind of futile. We definitely need to go through that and sort out the chaff from the wheat there, which I know is in the works at some point in time. But that's all that I had. Last call. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Is there any objection to unanimous consent?
no.
Seeing
None.
none,
They were closed, yeah.
we are adjourned at 8:14 p.m. Thank you all. Yeah, I hope you feel better.
Good night.
Krista. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Who's the artist in the background there? She's gone. Yeah, you got a month off from planning board. What's up with